Good morning, or depending on when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice of Radio. So today we need to have a look at the rotation. The rotation has officially been announced, and I just want to get this on the record. Totally called it. Like, literally, completely called it. Although, again, I do kind of have to do what I usually do in this situation, where I tell you I called it, and then I admit that actually it wasn't particularly clairvoyant. It was, in fact, pretty obvious if you follow the Pokémon TCG as closely as I do. You see, the rotation has been announced, and the very short version is, it is going to be Regulation Mark G onwards, and the rotation is going to happen on April the 11th, 2025. Well, of course it is. Because there's something very important about April the 11th, 2025. That date marks exactly 2 weeks since the release of Journey Together. And when I told you about the Japanese rotation the other day, I told you that the Japanese rotation was coming into effect on the day that Battle Partners came out over in Japan, Battle Partners being Scarlet and Violet 9. I told you that the day that comes legal, the day it comes out, which are the same in Japan, not over here, we'll get to that in a second, the rotation is going to hit Jobs are Good'un. And I told you that although, when I told you about Japan's rotation, I couldn't tell you the exact date of our rotation. I told you it would be the day our Scarlet and Violet 9 becomes legal, which is 2 weeks after the release date of our Scarlet and Violet 9, and we now know that Scarlet and Violet 9 is Journey Together. It is releasing on the 28th of March, and will therefore be legal exactly 2 weeks later, on the 11th of April, and would you believe it? That is exactly what is happening here. We have had confirmation now, as expected, the day that Journey Together, our Scarlet and Violet 9 becomes legal, will be the day that we rotate. And of course there is a pattern here. Essentially, the Pokemon TCG works in years, and there are 4 sets per year. So Scarlet and Violet 9 Journey Together is the first set of the 3rd year of the Scarlet and Violet block. Year 1 is sets 1 to 4. Year 2 is sets 5 to 8. This is set 9, the beginning of year 3. That's when the rotation was going to hit. When did the rotation hit last year? The day that Temporal Forces became legal, Scarlet and Violet 5. When did the rotation hit 2 years ago? The day that Scarlet and Violet base set became legal, Scarlet and Violet 1. Now, there probably won't be a Scarlet and Violet 13. That's not usually the way it goes. Generally speaking, we have 12 sets and then a new block starts, but we don't know exactly when the new game is coming out or any of that. If we follow the general rule, then this time next year, we'll be gearing up to the release of set 1 of Gen 10, whatever that is, and that'll be when the rotation comes in, but it could be something different. But whatever the February or March set is next year, it's been March for a few years now, so even though it should be every 3 months and it's usually February, it seems to be March now. But whatever that set is, that is going to be, the day that becomes legal is going to be our rotation. Remember, in Japan, things become legal, sets become legal on the day they're released. So the release date and the legality date of Battle Partners is the same date. It's January the 24th, if anybody's wondering. So we do actually have rotation at the same time as Japan. When our SV9 set becomes legal, when Japan's SV9 set becomes legal, that's when the rotation hits. Exactly as expected. Here's what it says over on the website. Every Championship Series season, Play Pokémon removes older expansions from competition in the standard format with the goal of maintaining a healthy competitive environment. This rotation challenges existing players to create new strategies and enables new players to get involved in Play Pokémon events using the most recent releases. Pokémon TCG Live also follows this rotation, so players can experience a consistent rule set no matter where they compete. Of course, I haven't actually said it explicitly yet, so for newer players, the rotation literally means these older sets are no longer legal for tournament play. Now, it is explained on the website like this. Cards with the F regulation mark will no longer be legal for play in the 2025 standard format. That is an F in the bottom left-hand corner. Cards with G and H regulation marks will be legal to use, as will any future regulation marks that may be released, except we've seen Japanese cards from Battle Partners. We know that there is a new regulation mark. We know that Battle Partners, being the first set of a new year, is going to bring in a new regulation mark. And we've got regulation mark I. Cool. But that's going to be the case going forward for the next year. A card's legality status is no longer based on which expansion it's from. Even if a card is from a recently released expansion, players will need to refer to the regulation mark on the bottom of the card to see whether the card is legal for play. New cards still must follow the appropriate waiting period to become tournament legal, which is typically 2 weeks after their release. So again, that's pretty standard. Like I say, 2 weeks after the release of Journey Together, we get the rotation. Moving forward, players should expect cards with the oldest legal regulation mark to rotate out of the standard format when a new one is introduced. For in-person play Pokemon events, a standard format rotation will go into effect on April the 11th. For digital play on Pokémon TCG Live, the rotation will go into effect on March the 27th. 2 reasons for that. Firstly, the cards are playable on TCG Live from that date, so it would be weird, frankly, to have a rotation different to what we're playing on Live. And also, Live is a place where a bunch of people go to test their decks, so having the new regulation legal there would make perfect sense. Here's what's also very important. Older versions of cards that don't have a regulation mark can still be used if the card is currently legal for play. And they use the examples of Rare Candy and Judge and things of that nature. Remember, the rule is, if it's a mechanically identical reprint, doesn't need to be the same wording, just the same effect, or it's received an official errata, it will be legal for tournament play. It's why Old Quick Ball is legal, despite the fact Old Quick Ball is just completely different to New Quick Ball. But because it received an official errata, you can play Old Quick Ball, even though Old Quick Ball is completely different to New Quick Ball. Sorry about that. That bit does get a little bit confusing. I see where they're going with this, but it is a little bit confusing when a player busts out an older one. Make sure you do have a reference card to show, of course. So that's what we've got in terms of the standard format rotation. We were, of course, told about the expanded rotation. Don't get excited, it's still black and white on. We haven't changed the rotation in Expanded for a while. A lot of people have suggested it's basically turning into a legacy format, and frankly it is. Do remember there are a bunch of banned cards in Expanded, so please bear that in mind if you're planning to play Expanded. Honestly, we don't actually see many Expanded tournaments nowadays. Certainly regionals aren't Expanded nowadays. A lot of people don't play it. So it's a little bit sad in a way, but that format seems to almost have been forgotten, at least from a competitive angle, which makes sense why we don't really need to update it. But I know there are a lot of people out there that like Expanded and frankly wish there were more tournaments. The good news is for our rotation, this is about the cleanest rotation we've ever had. Not only is it effectively Scarlet and Violet on, but it's actually even better than that. It's silver border on. So any cards from the Scarlet and Violet era that have silver borders, legal for tournament play. Any older cards, Sword and Shield and before, with yellow borders, not legal for tournament play. It's really quite simple. It's actually a really clean... I think it might be the cleanest rotation we've ever seen. It's really kind of awesome. So it's going to make things, for 1 year at least, it's going to be easy. There might be the odd card here or there that's a newer card printed with an older regulation, but the vast majority of the time, it is just going to be silver borders good, yellow borders bad, which I just love that. I think that's a wonderful way to do it, and it makes me very happy indeed. Plus, yellow borders are gone! And when I'm casting events after April, I can ignore any yellow border cards. There will be no yellow border cards. And that is frankly wonderful. Go team! Okay, cool. So, In terms of how this is going to affect it, I've gone into this in previous videos, so I don't just want to repeat myself and give you the same things again. But it is important to note that there are a number of types of cards which are going away. So all Pokemon V are now gone. All Pokemon V Max are now gone. All Pokemon V Star are now gone. They were here. They ain't no more. They've all gone by the wayside. All Radiant Pokemon are now gone because they were, of course, back in the last year of the Sword and Shield era. So they are all gone and, well, presumably they're not coming back. But all EXs are here. So EX is good. V or any derivative thereof, bad. There we go. Nice and clean. And it is going to have a pretty profound effect on the metagame. I mean, in terms of big decks we're losing, Lugia is gone. That is a deck which is completely going away because the main Pokemon have rotated. Regidrago, another big deck seeing a lot of success right now, which has rotated, or will have rotated. And although it's technically not rotating, Gardevoir is losing the Curlier with the draw engine from Silver Tempest. So although Gardevoir isn't rotating, I don't have much faith in Gardevoir without the Curlier with the draw engine. We're also, for the time being, and it never lasts, but for the time being, we're losing everything to do with the Lost Zone. The Lost Zone as a mechanic is completely going away, but this has happened before. All the cards that interact with the Lost Zone rotate, and then at some point we have a set themed after the Lost Zone and they all come back. So there we go. Rotation has been announced. It is official. As of the 11th of April, yellow borders out, silver borders in, EXs are good, Vs, V Stars and V Maxes are bad. There we go. That's what you need to know. And now it's over to you guys. Tell me what you think about the rotation. Tell me if your favorite deck is going to survive and how well it's going to survive. Tell me anything you want to tell me in the comment section. Get us! Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at Lawasi. That's where we talk about Pokemon and a whole bunch of other card games. And please do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all kinds of fun things. Oh, and get shout-outs on the channel, like the lovely Kanto Royalty, who's been a supporter of ours for a while now and is a very lovely person. So shout out to them for the support and the loveliness. But by far the most important thing is always, look after yourself till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.